So in our study of pipe flows, the next concept that we want to see is what happens when a fluid flow enters a pipe and how it evolves. So if you have a pipe section that is fairly long, and let's say at the inlet to the pipe you have fluid that is approximately at the same velocity or uniform in its profile. Let's call it U. Okay, you have fluid whose velocity is uniform at the inlet. Immediately, as soon as the fluid enters the pipe, at the walls here, okay, at the walls, the fluid at the wall has the same velocity as the wall, so it goes or it is pulled back to zero velocity. We call this the no slip boundary condition. At the boundary between the fluid and the wall have the same velocity or there is no relative motion between them, making the fluid velocity to be zero at the wall. So this layer of fluid or those molecules that are at the wall, they have a zero velocity average, and then what happens is they pull back on the adjacent layer of fluid. So they pull back. So instead of the adjacent layer being equal to the same velocity, it is now a little bit lesser. This should have been their velocity, but it is now lesser. And then the next layer should have had the same velocity, but it is now a little bit lesser. So this goes on. So over a certain distance, from the wall, the effect of the wall has kind of propagated. That is, the effect of the wall, which is really slowing down of fluid, has propagated towards the center line. That is, here is momentum or here is fluid coming in with uniform velocity. As you move along the axis or along the length, a certain portion of the fluid becomes deficient in momentum than other portions. That is, these portions have lesser momentum than the remaining portion because some of their momentum has been taken up by the slowdown. Okay, has been reduced by the slowdown. As the fluid profile or as the fluid flows further downstream, the extent of this region grows in size. That is, more and more of the fluid is now feeling the effect of the wall. So you have a profile that is starting to have a curved profile for a longer distance. Still, some of the fluid is still uniform, and then there is remaining the same flow rate. That is, if you took the flow rate to be the uniform velocity divided the area, the same flow rate is going through the entire pipe. Okay, same volumetric flow rate, assuming we are dealing with incompressible flows here. So as distance goes on, you have the fluid profile becoming more and more, that is, the profile penetrating more and more distance into the pipe cross section. At a point, it will reach a point where the profile is fully viscous, or in other words, the propagation reached the center line. Propagation has reached the center line. There is no more effect to be felt because from both sides the effect of the wall has reached the center line, and from here on, the fluid velocity profile remains independent of the axial location. That is, if you consider this to be your axis, as your position goes from the start, which is z equals 0 here, from z equals 0 all the way to the point that it becomes fully developed, or in other words it becomes fully viscous, the velocity profile continuously evolves and becomes more and more viscous. So in this diagram here, this part is the viscous region, so is this part because it's symmetric and it's on the other side. Okay, and this part here, this is the inviscid region. That is, this part has not felt the effect of viscosity yet, whereas this part has felt it yet. This evolution starts initially. The inviscid portion is entirely its inviscid portion, entirely inviscid. The amount of viscous region grows slowly as the profile evolves along the pipe. It grows, and then after a while you have what is called as fully viscous, or we call it fully developed. If we call this profile fully developed, this portion all the way from here, or from the start to here, this length is called the developing length. This length is called the developing length. It is the distance over which the effect of the wall propagates through the fluid by slowing down successive layers of fluid, and over this length the fluid velocity profile becomes fully viscous or fully developed, and you will see that this fully developed velocity profile has, if you look at the center line here, it is symmetric about the center, so we can write du over dr is 0 at the center. We don't know the shape of the curve yet, that is something we'll talk about, but at least we know that the fluid velocity profile is symmetric about the bottom side, since this is axisymmetric, it's going to be symmetric about the axis. Okay, so this fully developed velocity profile is a direct result of viscous action. That is, because your fluid has a viscosity, it experiences a viscous shear stress due to the wall. If you didn't have any viscosity, the fluid will just simply shear past the wall of the tube with zero action, and you will have the same inviscid velocity profile propagate throughout the pipe. There won't be any change. But because the fluid has viscosity, viscous dissipation or shear stress causes this velocity profile to change, and also in that process we saw that when we discussed Reynolds number, viscous shear takes away kinetic energy from the flow. That's the main effect of viscous shear. It takes away kinetic energy from the flow and converts it into molecular kinetic energy or thermal energy or heat. Now, if you think initially we had uniform profile. Okay, if you think of pressure, think about the pressure at each point. That is, as a function of distance from this point, if the pressure is let's say we plot pressure here. If the pressure at the starting point is P1, let's think of the most extreme case. The extreme case, when you have zero viscosity, no shear stress, what will happen to the pressure if you don't accelerate or decelerate the flow? Whatever velocity with which you enter, or P1, okay, P1, there is no change in the velocity. So by Bernoulli equation, P1 plus half rho U1 squared should be equal to P2 plus half rho U2 squared. If you take any other section, if 1 is here and 2 is anywhere along this axis, P1 will simply continue at the same level if there is no viscosity in this flow. That's the ideal case. We can't have that in reality. That's the ideal case. Okay? If you had fluid viscosity, the fluid shear stress is proportional to the velocity gradient. Okay? If you look at the velocity gradient here, what is gradient? Gradient is change in velocity over change in length. Here is a change of, let's say the centerline velocity is like u. From 0 to u happens over a certain distance delta 1 here, over a certain distance delta 2 here, over a certain distance delta 3 here, over a certain distance delta 4, which is equal to the radius of the tube. And we know that delta 1 is less than delta 2, less than delta 3, less than delta 4. So if I think about the velocity gradient at each of those 4 locations, u divided by delta 1 must be more than u divided by delta 2, u divided by delta 3, and u divided by delta 4. Which means the shear stress tau 1 is more than tau 2, is more than tau 3, is more than tau 4. The shear stresses at the locations closer to the start are more than the values of shear stress away from the start. And whatever is at section 4, section 4 is part of also the fully developed region. That is, from here on, the shear stresses, whatever it is, from this section, it is tau 4, it doesn't change anymore. So if you think shear stress is responsible for stealing energy from the flow, the stealing is most at the beginning, it reduces as time goes on and reaches a steady value from here on. The pressure falls steeply at the beginning, it starts to fall gradually, and after it reaches the fully developed region, it falls at a steady pace. So this part here, the slope corresponds to a straight line, constant slope, whereas it falls steepest at the start, and then there's the fall or the fall rate, or I'll say pressure fall rate at which pressure decreases, reduces. I am plotting pressure here, I am not plotting the rate at which pressure falls, I am plotting pressure. It falls the steepest at the beginning, it kind of tapers off and then reaches a constant rate in the end. So what do we call that term? Pressure variation over length is called pressure drop. Pressure drop, delta P, pressure gradient, which is delta P over delta Z. You call this the Z direction. The pressure gradient is more when the shear stress is more. Pressure gradient is a direct measure of how much energy stealing that is happening. Pressure gradient is more when the shear stress is more initially. It reduces, the rate at which pressure drops reduces and reaches a constant rate of drop at the end. So this pressure gradient, the pressure gradient dP over dZ is a constant in the developing region. So you can identify the fully developed region, in the fully developed region. So you can identify the fully developed region by two mathematical conditions. One is, in the fully developed region, the velocity profile is no longer dependent on the axial location. The velocity profile depends only on the radial location. Okay? And then the pressure gradient, the pressure falls at a constant rate, or the pressure gradient is a constant. It falls at a constant rate, meaning if you consider from this length to this length, let's say this L here, over this length, whatever the pressure gradient is, dP over dZ times L, that is your pressure drop. If you consider the same length L, but at this portion where the flow is still evolving, it is still developing, it's not yet fully developed, the delta P, I'll write it here, actually I'll just write it here, the delta P in the developing region, okay, is more than the delta P in the fully developed region for the same length. For the same length, the rate of pressure drop is a constant, is lesser than what it would be in the fully developed region where the pressure is dropping faster. This is pressure, remember. So the same length of piping section will lead to a larger pressure drop in the developing region, and will be comparatively lesser. I didn't say zero, it will be comparatively lesser in the fully developed region. So you can think of the fully developed region as a region where the velocity is independent of the axial position, as a region where the pressure gradient is a constant, and it's a region of constant energy loss, or region where energy loss takes place at a steady rate, at a fixed rate, okay. The developing region is a region where the velocity profile is both a function of the axial position and radial position. Okay, the pressure gradient dP over dZ is not a constant, it's usually a function of position. It depends on where you are Near the start it's higher, near the end of the developing region it's lower and goes to zero and goes to a constant. Okay? Energy loss takes place at a variable rate, that is higher nearer to the entrance. It is higher nearer to the entrance and stabilizes towards the end of the developing region. That is, this is the end of the developing region. It stabilizes and from there on it switches to this fully developed region. Okay? Lastly, the pressure drop across a length of pipe in the developing region is greater than the pressure drop across a similar length, a same length of pipe, but that is now in the developed region. That is, if you consider the same section, maybe 1 meter of pipe in the fully developed region drops a certain pressure, but that pressure drop will be lower than what you would see in the developing region. Okay? So that is the concept involved in how we calculate or how we think about the evolution of the velocity profile. As a flow enters a pipe, it undergoes viscous effects and then becomes a flow velocity profile that is fully viscous. Now, the question that you would want to ask is, how long is this developing length? From here to here, what is the developing length? How to calculate it? How to calculate the developing length? That's the question. It is possible to calculate this computationally. We can do